Ooh, this is exotic. Muscle Cat Media. Nice. Cultural.
Back on the Pickoff, getting you set for baseball's resumption in Major League Baseball following the All-Star break. Although there was a game today that I didn't even realize was happening until it was over. Mets-Phillies randomly playing a standalone game on a Thursday in the United States, which the Mets ended up winning 4-1. Will that turn their season around? Who knows? But a full slate of games coming up this weekend. We're here to talk about that. Not only that, but take the temperature on Spoon's feeling about some of his futures plays that he had preseason. But both of the boys are here with me. Eric, Spoon. Boys, how are we? First of all, how did you get through this period, this lull of not having baseball for the last 3 days?
I literally always have baseball. That's all I do.
I knew you were going to say some shit like that.
I spent some time talking about Aussie baseball in my lull from American baseball. A little bit less to do, actually. It was kind of nice.
I watched Mets Phillies. I'm a sick man.
How was it?
Your Francisco Alvarez hit 2 home runs off Aaron Nola. It was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm scraping the barrel. Obviously, matchup selection and headlines. You didn't miss much. This is night and day from when we got together Tuesday and said, Eric, drop everything and rewatch the home run derby. Like, that was the best thing ever. I can't make such recommendations for today's game.
I won't be going back.
Well, I mean, look, that's the burning question on everyone's lips in, you know, the Baseball Expats Reddit page is, did Eric watch the home run derby? Did you go back and watch it?
I did. It was awesome. Netflix did a killer job, man. That's cool.
Yeah, I thought their production was really good. Oddly enough, it came through today that it's the lowest watched home run derby in the last 20 years. But that has to do something with the platform, right? That can't be just because
it has to do for sure that it's on Netflix.
Yeah,
and the price goes up like $4 every month.
Yeah, well, I mean, I saw it come through today, and a bunch of people were griping and going, "Oh, the home run derby's not working. It's not this. It's not that." And it's like legitimately everybody that watched it, except for that one guy that I screenshotted on Reddit and sent to you guys, who had 6 opinions and they were all wrong, managed to go 0 for 6 in one paragraph about his summation of the home run derby. Like, aside from that one guy on the internet, everybody that I've spoken to loves it. So it was just a platform problem. But I mean, that does beg the question that if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it make any noise?
Platform problem is about to be a huge issue, and it probably already is, not just in baseball, but in sport in general. Like, Netflix did all the games in Japan on the World Baseball Classic, and they were getting 48 million people per game watching the World Baseball Classic in Japan when it was on free-to-air television. They put it on Netflix, and Australia versus Japan was the highest-rated game of Japan's run at this last WBC, and it had 18 million people, right? So you're slashing the audiences by over half. Now, it drew a lot of subscriptions, and that was the point, because people wanted to go and watch baseball on it. But it really, it's going to start begging the question about what drives culture. Do people go to where the sport is, or does sport create the culture? Seeing that in hockey for the first time in Canada, the flagship hockey night in Canada was taken off free-to-air TV for the first time ever this coming year. It's only going to be on Rogers Sportsnet on the paywall. And it's the same problem in Australia. You can take a look at, like, footy. Could you guys imagine if on Channel 7 they didn't air Friday Night Footy, or on 9 they didn't air Friday Night Footy, and it wasn't just this one free game a week? Could you imagine if we were in Australia where we said, here's our national sports, you cannot watch them for free ever?
I think we have legislation around, at least, like
anti-siphoning
public
in Australia,
interest
which
stuff.
obviously doesn't
Grand
exist
finals
in the
have to
US.
be, big race days have to be like Melbourne Cup. Like, we have laws around it, at least.
They have to be now. That doesn't mean it can't change, right? Like, that.
Well, it's legislation. You would have to legitimately change legislation in order for that to happen,
that could
which
happen.
I don't think would happen. It's anti-siphoning.
So you're saying
laws.
that a big multi-quadrillion dollar media company can't have influence over politics?
Well, the big sports are just redoing their TV rights now, so I think we're in the clear for at least 5 years, right?
Well, they basically all do now, but in Australia, I don't know how this came up. This wasn't part of our rundown at all, but it's an interesting conversation. All your big free-to-air networks now have their own streaming platforms, right? We were just going through this with the NRL's big deal, which I think was $5.3 billion for the next 8 years. Channel 9, who is free to air, was actually pitching for the entire rights because they were also going to put it on their streaming platform, which is
Which is
Stan.
great.
But then in order to get through the anti-siphoning, we're going to have to put X amount of games still on free to air, which is why the deal is split now between Fox and Channel 9, as it always has been. And it's sort of the same thing with the AFL, right? With Channel 7 and Fox Sports. So I
But
actually
could you
do like,
imagine, though? That's my point.
that. Well, but again, I think Australia is unique in that sense. And I think it's actually probably a good piece of legislation, which is a stream of words that probably would never come out of Spoon's mouth, but I'll say it. Because I do think that it makes a lot of sense for the general viewing public to be safeguarded against having to have 18 subscriptions to watch their favorite sport.
But that's going to be a problem in baseball, and it already is, right? Like, it's not accessible on free-to-air TV. It just isn't at all.
It's a chicken and egg thing as well, though, right? Like, to your question of what drives eyeballs and then what drives dollars, do you know more people watched England versus Norway than watched last year's AFL Grand Final? And that's like apples for apples because they're both on free-to-air. That's insane. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of British expats here, but that was a 6 a.m. game.
Did you know that couldn't happen in Canada and the United States because it's not on free-to-air TV? You have to pay for a subscription to watch it, right? Like, it's going to be a problem in North American sport in general, and baseball's not going to be immune to that. Like, I understand why these TV companies want to go in there, but TV is such a cultural part of how you grow a sport and you grow fanfare around it. We'll use Canada as an example again. You know, hockey is this defining, unifying thing in Canada. And it's because if you were an immigrant escaping a war-torn country, you come here on a Saturday night, hockey's on TV, and it's something that is like uniquely Canadian, and you can kind of be bonded by that. Like, it's having free access to sport and culture that's the prevalent thing of whatever country goes a long way. And that sucks in Japan if they're taking baseball off free-to-air TV. It sucks in the United States if it's really, really complicated to figure out how to watch baseball in general without paying a fortune for it. It takes it away from the common people, and it doesn't unite anybody. It's been a big thought point of mine lately. It really sucks. So I think that it is a tragedy that it was on Netflix, because that is why it was the lowest rating. But it was a great broadcast. Unbelievable broadcast. Unbelievable show.
I think the one thing they've got to stop doing is just cutting to some random celebrity in the middle of a swing. Like, we don't know where the ball went. Like, they're showing us, like, he's about to swing, and then they're like, here's Freddie Freeman hanging out with his kids. Like, come on, man. There's heaps of time to fit that in between. If you're sitting to watch the home run derby, and if you've got over 74.5 home runs in the first round, I want to see every single bat hit every single ball.
Yeah, that's fair. I like this.
I wanted to see a home run counter because I had to keep going back and tallying them up myself as guys were hitting tanks to figure out where that bet was. But as we talked about earlier in the week, it got through comfortably. Well, look, speaking of some things getting through comfortably and some things not, we are going to reflect on, if you were with us before the season started, Spoon gave us a heap of bets, both on the pitching side and the offensive side, in terms of statistical milestones, awards, all those sorts of things. And we're going to do a bit of good, bad, and unlucky with Spoon today on sort of taking the temperature on where some of those bets are. I will say, if you go to baseballexpats.com and you click the content drop down and head to MLB picks, there is there's a ticker on Spoon's 2026 pitcher futures. We never got around to putting the hitter futures up because, well, you know, life gets in the way sometimes, but you can sort of track how Spoon's pitching futures are going from a strikeout standpoint. But instead of switching it up that way from pitchers and hitters, Spoon, I thought we might do good, bad, and unlucky. And because in the spirit of this show and the fact that it's Friday, I think we're going to end on a high note. So why don't we start with the bad in terms of some of the bets that you gave us in the preseason that not only aren't looking so good, but are genuinely absolutely no chance and are proverbial confetti at the moment. Let's start with the brutal. Get it out of the way.
Yeah, there's an easy first option. I think we all know it. I've been complaining about it on and off air throughout the season. Vladdy Guerrero is not going to hit 35 home runs this year. He has 6 at the break. Guys, he has 6. I think there's a couple of guys that the Jays have called up in the last few weeks that are approaching 6 already. I don't know what it is. I mean, we've talked about Vladdy. He kind of had a slow start, but he had a slow start last year. He was hitting really well for a while. I mean, he's still hitting 262, but he's
been awful, man.
Yeah, he's just not slugging at all. Like, his slug is 357. Like, he's almost turned into, I joked about it a while ago, but now it's seriously, he's like a worse Luis Ariz right now in 2026.
He's hitting 262, but he was hitting over 300 at the end of May.
Yeah. OPS plus below 100, 6 home runs, and he's not even getting allowed outs on the warning track, right? Like, I've watched a fair bit of Jays this year. He is nowhere near 35. I think we can circle that one pretty clearly and say that's not going to be happening. Look, I reckon I prefaced this one with an abundance of caution, but still, Kodai Senga, 130 strikeouts. He has 47. He's now a long reliever. He had a little stint on the IL for the Mets. They brought him back. They tried to use him as a starter. They tried a 6-man rotation. It's just not really worked at all. I still feel like he has maybe the coolest strikeout pitch in baseball, the ghost forkball that just like drops off a cliff. But the problem is he's never getting to 2 strikes. He was walking a heap of guys. He struck out 47, and he's now, if he's going to get me 83, he's going to have to do that pretty much once a day out of the bullpen for the rest of the season. So I think, to use Rolsey's term, that's proverbial confetti.
I will say, looking at his tracker on that pitcher's future page is funny because it says his last outing, 1 inning against Boston, 1 strikeout. Next probable, not listed. That's not what you want when he's
look, the upside is he could pitch every day.
Totally. It's
but
a good
the
point.
downside is he could pitch every day. So yeah, Kodai Senga.
Well, it's not destiny drive. You don't care if he gives up 3 or 4 runs out of the bullpen if he gets a couple strikeouts along the way.
100%. Give me the punchies. And then look, I think the third one, I'm probably going to put in as a bad play, even though it's still alive. And we just talked about this before, Rolsey. Shane McClanahan. When I made the case for him at the start of the season, you said who? And I went on to talk about why I think he was tremendous value. 150 strikeouts, $2.20. We took 170 at 550 and 180 at 11s. He's having an awesome season. But the problem is he just cannot go past 80, 85 pitches. And he's probably on the worst organization in baseball as far as trusting the analytics. And, the front office would have said before the season, we are not risking this guy getting hurt again. So he's got a pitch count for the whole season. He's got an innings count for the whole season. And they've stuck with that. I mean, I've watched countless times this year. He's gone through 5 innings. He struck out 5. He's given up 1 earned run. He's maybe walked 1 guy. And then that's it. Like, I just switched back over to the Rays game, and there's some random dude I've never heard of with a 2.4 ERA out of the bullpen coming to end Shane McClanahan's night. So, look, he's on 82 out of that 150. He's got 68 to go. I'm going to say it's a bad play just because a lot has to go right. And when you consider he was coming back from injury, the limit on it has really kind of killed any of the top up and upside. He can still get to 150. He needs 68 to go. It's going to come down to the wire. But if I had my time again and you told me at the start of the year, you're going to be very lucky to see him pitching into the 6th inning, even if he makes 32 starts, I wouldn't be taking that one again. So not confetti, but I've kind of got the rip ready to go,
But I would put him, and we'll do that next before we do good, but I think I would probably put him in the unlucky category because I still think your thesis was right. I mean, you expected him to bounce back. And ultimately, if you go back and you read your thesis preseason and you're still happy with what your thought process was, and I think you can probably have that positive mindset with McClanahan because he has looked good and he has pitched well. And he's a guy whose totals were lower than probably what they would be if we hadn't seen him in 24 months. You know what I mean? So I still think your thesis was right. But just, I mean, you nailed it. The fact that he's playing in an organization that is a very good team and they're going to need him come October, and they're notorious for just going, nah, we're not going to ruin this guy. All of those things have sort of aligned against you to make it difficult for him to get to that first number. But I would still argue that your thesis at the beginning of the year was correct.
Do you still think there's a chance that the Rays let him go a little bit longer, even that extra inning or time through whatever that looks like down the stretch run, given that they are in a race, they are going to be fighting with the Yankees, there's going to be a bit of a battle? Like, do you think they let him go a little bit?
I think what's really encouraging is he went 6.1 last outing against the Yankees just before the break. And whether that's, to your point, maybe a bit of a different approach in the second half of the season, or it was, this is a guy who's about to have 10 days off with the All-Star break, we're going to let him empty the tank a little bit more. We'll see in a couple of days when he starts again, because I think, yeah, absolutely. There's still that upside now. I kind of thought, I expected this to happen till about May. The fact that it's gone through to July is kind of concerning. But there's easily a world where it's like, all right, we're convinced now that you can kind of go deeper into your starts. And if that happens, then yeah, this is a completely different story.
I actually think you could be more optimistic about it because it's already happening in terms of he's made 17 starts, and of his first 14 starts, only one of them were for 6 or more innings, and he has pitched 6 or more 3 games in a row. So I actually think, the Rays are very measured with stuff. You don't always know what they're doing. I think that they are letting him go a little bit longer. Not going to be a 7-inning guy. I don't think that's the case, but I think there's actually more optimism for this one if your numbers in the 60s to kind of get there, because he is being let go further. Like the numbers and data do show that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, what's he going to make? Like we've talked already about how this halfway mark isn't really halfway, so he's not going to have 16 more starts. If you
He's
work
gonna have
on
12 more starts.
Yeah, I think so. 12 more starts. I need 68, so 5 to 6.
He's got 60. He's got 60 innings in it. He's got 60 innings in a minimum. It could be more.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, if this is one of the 3 bad, and we're saying it's not that bad, I can live with it. Although
I
I
would
think
bet
there's
it
a
now.
couple.
Like, what's the value on it now?
Unfortunately, they don't. They don't adjust these mid-season. It's probably a good thing for me, to be honest, because I probably would have kept backing up on Vladdy after a slow month, and like all of a sudden I'll need Vladdy to hit 40 home runs just to stay in the country. But yeah, look, to be honest, if we're doing this show again in February preseason, and I can have the exact same lines about McClanahan, I'm 100% going again. So to your point about the thesis not moving, even if this is an entire season of this kind of stuff, then next year I think is tremendous value. And he's a name that Rolsey had forgotten about on a team that a lot of people forget about. So I think that's where you're going to find value a lot of the time for these guys.
All right, so look, those are the bad, and I agree with you. If we're putting McClanahan in the bad, I would tend to move him over to the unlucky pile. But let's move on to that now. Some of the bets that, again, kind of along the line, I guess, of McClanahan, where your thesis is still obviously correct, but you've run into just a little bit of bad luck.
I think the standout one to start with, from the hitter side, Ronald Acuna Jr., they were giving me even money at the start of the year for 30 stolen bases. The guy has torn the same hamstring 3 times, which I think is unlucky. I think, look, this isn't a guy who's exactly been the epitome of health his entire season, but I didn't think that he'd miss as many games as he had. In 53 games, he swiped 15 bases. Like, he was on pace for 45, 50 stolen bases, and there was a top up in there for 50 at like $6 or something like that. The line was way off, and you can't tell me Vegas knew that he had 2 paper mache hamstrings that he was about to put to the test. So I feel like there's a little bit of bad luck there. He had a game early this year where he stole 3 bases, and then I think the next week he went on the IL. So this play kind of survived 2 IL stints. It's probably not going to be surviving a third one. But that said, I mean, 15 stolen bases, if he comes back with, I don't know, 50 games to go, realistically, they're probably going to tell him don't run. But I also don't think Ronald Acuna Jr. likes to follow those kind of instructions. It's probably not 100% dead, but I think it's confetti with a fair bit of bad luck there.
You know what else is crazy about
MLB
Ronnie?
seasons.
But you know what else is crazy about Ronnie is, like, in terms of stolen bases, is it's like, yeah, like you remember back in the day, like he was like in the 97th percentile in terms of sprint speed in the big leagues. And because of all the injuries, like he's now, like, I mean, Baseball Savant has him bang on middle of the road. Like he's a 50 on a scale from 0 to 100 in terms of sprint speed. So it's obvious that it's been bothering him as his career has gone on, because obviously he's continued with hamstring injuries. But the fact that he's still been able to do it with ease shows you just how much smarter he's gotten running the bases. Like, he picks his spots so well because he can't do it on pure speed. He's been able to do it on base running smarts. And that's how he was able to get to that number, even though he probably wasn't 100% healthy with that hamstring when he was playing this year, which is probably why he's torn it 3 times. So it just, I mean, to your point, it just goes to show the kind of player that Ronnie is. So if he does come in and say, you know, he's able to play 50 games in the back half of the year, who's to say that he can't swipe another 15, because he doesn't necessarily do it on speed. He does it off of the pitcher.
We've been so deprived from Ronnie and a great career that could have been. Like, this is
like our next Trout, right?
He's
like
had
another
2,
Trout.
but even worse than Mike Trout, because Mike Trout at least got MVP seasons in there, right? Like, Ronnie's had 2 healthy seasons out of 9, and his 2 healthy seasons are all timers.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Rolsey, around the speed, like, look at some of the stolen base percentage numbers. Like, so even last year when he didn't play a ton, he stole 9 in 10 attempts. His MVP season, he stole 73 bags and he got caught stealing 14 times. This year he's stolen 15. He's been caught 7. So I think, you know, to feed into the unlucky narrative even more, the attempts were there. Like, he attempted 22 steals in 53 games. If you told me before the season he was going to be attempting 1 every 2 games and I was getting that 30 line, like, you know, I couldn't get enough on. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. it's probably dead for a lot of reasons outside of control, but I'd definitely be taking it again, if I had my time again and I didn't know the extent of those hamstring issues.
Who else have you got in that category?
I think Brandon Woodruff's an interesting one. I mean, he was a guy I talked about with Shane McClanahan, right? They were both in that same category as remember this guy? He was amazing 3 years ago, and you probably haven't really thought about him since. And I really liked him as the front end of that rotation with Freddie Peralta moving away to New York. Corbin Burns has been gone for a couple of years. This was the first time Woodruff had a chance to be the opening day starter, the ace of that rotation. And he's just had a couple of really bad injuries. I mean, we talked about and joked about his comment the first time he went to the IL where he said to the manager, "It's dead, nothing's coming out," which is just one of the more unique quotes you'll hear from an athlete. And look, he had a lot of similar treatment to McClanahan as far as, "Oh, this is a really good start, but you pulled after 4." And I was expecting that, but it was ramping up and up. And then he came back from that, and it probably wasn't confetti at the time because he had some amazing outings since he came back. Like if you look at, I think he made 4 starts since he returned from that first IL stint. His strikeout numbers were just phenomenal. He had a 10 strikeout game against the Reds in his first start in 8 weeks. He only needed 79 pitches and he struck out 10. And then 2 starts since then, he struck out 6 Cubs, struck out 6 D-backs, again on a really low pitch count. And then that D-back start is when he got hurt again, and now it's done for the season, confetti time. But I think a guy who picked up 47 strikeouts in 9 outings, if I'm getting the full season, I'm getting my 150 minimum. And 175 was in play given how he was starting to trend up.
Yeah, and look, it's almost like Milwaukee hasn't missed him, which is crazy. And like we think about how good that pitching staff has been, bullpen notwithstanding, I guess, and they've already sort of made a few moves to shore up parts of their bullpen. But just imagine how much better potentially they could be with a healthy Brandon Woodruff this year. It's scary to think about, to be fair.
Yeah, and I mean, Mizorowski wasn't on my radar in the slightest as being, I was saying Milwaukee needs an ace, and then they go and find 4 aces or a superstar ace in Mizorowski. But guys like Henderson and, like that pitching staff has just been fantastic. So, yeah, look, I don't regret that one. I think a bit went wrong. I knew some of that risk was kind of priced in, but I feel like it's a little bit of a hard luck story.
So we've got Ronnie and Woodruff both in that sort of hard luck camp. Have you got anybody else in that box?
Yeah, look, this one probably, maybe if we can be realistic about it, we move McClanahan into unlucky and maybe we move Jackson Holiday into bad. But I think I want to talk about Jackson Holiday.
I think that's fair. Yes, I think we do that.
Yeah. I think Jackson Holiday 70 RBIs is call it unlucky, call it bad. It's one of the two. He's got 15 RBIs. He just hasn't played anywhere near as much. I mean, he was meant to miss the first weekend of opening day and then play about 150-ish games. He's played 45 games and he refractured the hamate bone, and then he had wrist problems and he had to do like 3 minor league rehabs. Like he's got 15 RBIs in 45 games, but a few of those games he's been pulled early in the game or hasn't kind of played a full game. If you look at that over a season, I mean, we got a pretty good price, about 70 RBIs. I think it was $350 or something, $4. If he played 162 games and he was kind of an everyday player, I think that was around the mark, and that was probably a good price to take. But the big lesson, I think, is a guy who's not going to be ready for opening day, especially like a finicky injury like this, I don't really want to be part of it from a futures point of view because you're racing against the clock from day one. And if you type in on my Google search JA, it just goes Jackson Holiday injury news. Like the amount of times I was punching that in for a couple of months till I proverbially confettied the ticket. It's not something I want to be doing again. So yeah, a bit of a mistake there, I think, and call it bad luck. But at the same time, he didn't get hurt once the season started. It's like Destiny Draft, right? I basically drafted a guy on the IL. I can't claim bad luck on this. This is on me.
Well, and you even, like our first show of the new baseball season, you had a segment that I believe you called "You're Not My Mate," where you were talking, I want to say, were you talking about Corbin Carroll's hamate injury at the time?
Yeah, and Lindor, right? All 3 guys had that.
So you weren't even talking about Jackson Holiday from a hamate
but
standpoint.
They both made opening day. And I mean, Corbin Carroll, up until the last few weeks, was having a tremendous season. And Lindor's second stint to the IL was unrelated to that. So when they all got hurt within the same few days. And when those guys were back, I think I just kind of copy-pasted their timeline, or maybe even said, this is a 22-year-old kid from the Orioles. He's going to be fine. But realistically, there was a big red flashing button that said, don't back me, and I clicked it.
I'll send you the link to that episode, Eric. It was a good one.
Thanks.
I think you were in Japan when we did that, so big flex, humble brag. So for putting those guys in bad luck, look, we'll move on to some of the good stories and spots that you're in. But I think if this was a Venn diagram, this guy probably fits maybe in the unlucky category, but potentially in the good, and a guy that we usually don't go an episode without mentioning. And I think if there's a guy that's straddling those two areas, it's probably a Yuri Perez.
Yeah. Like when he does that hamstring stretching in the dugout after he struck out 8 Blue Jays in 4 innings or something like that. And then he went and he struck out 9 in 4 innings on 73 pitches. He was getting ready to go back out and hopefully strike out a few more. And he tweaked something in his hamstring and they said it was going to be 2 months at least. And that was proverbial ticket. I'm glad I didn't even have a ticket because I might have rage ripped it. You can't really do that digitally, which is a benefit for sure. Look, he came back after under a month. So that Jays start was the 27th of May. He returned on the 24th of June. And since then, look, he struck out 1 in his return, but he was very clearly being told not to go 100%. And then since then, he's got 8 strikeouts against the Rockies, 8 strikeouts against Athletics in 7 perfect innings, which we've touched on already about how the perfect game will never happen again. And then 6 in the start just before the break against the Guardians. Like, he is well and truly on track. He's got 95 strikeouts in 16 starts. So what's that, an average of 7 per start, which is insane when you consider the injured one and the return one. And we took him for 150, 170, and 190 at really nice prices. And to be honest, out of all of the plays I made, both pitchers and hitters, I went the hardest on this one. So I was hit the hardest, maybe except for Yuri himself when he went on the IL. But to see him back now and look, 55 strikeouts to 150. We're working on 12 starts to go. We just made the case for McClanahan.
Very possible.
I think the 150 is clearly in range. And I think the 170 might be as well. To your point about the unlucky, if any of these miss by 5 strikeouts, whether it's the base of the ladder or the top of the ladder, that month out of nowhere that he just missed is going to really hurt because he could have easily had a 200 strikeout season if he made 32 starts without question. It's just about how much that costs me, and I probably won't know until the last day of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of these top-ups that you really want to hit, right? I mean, we'll talk about some guys where you might potentially hit that top-up in strikeout markets and otherwise, but, you know, a guy like Yuri Perez is, when you're 55 strikeouts from hitting your baseline, and then, you know, what is that, 75 strikeouts from probably, you know, a $3.40 hit at 170, like, it would be good to hit, and because he's a guy that, you know, but again, who knows, because the Marlins might well and truly have wrapped up a playoff spot in the last month of the season. What do they do with him? You know what I mean? So it could be a weird parallel with what happens with McClanahan in some ways, different but the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, like I've spoken about at length with futures players, and particularly at the start of the season, you're going to have your Brandon Woodruffs, right, who just get hurt. You're going to have your Jackson Holidays, as much as I wish I didn't. So for every one of those where you're taking on extra risk, that these top-ups become more and more important, because the idea is, you know, I hit a Yuri base and a couple of top-ups. That takes out my losses on a Woodruff and that sort of thing. You kind of want to be right and be really right. And we'll talk about a couple of hitters in a moment where that looks like it'll be the case. But yeah, I think if I come away from all of this with Yuri Perez and I just hit the 150 at $2.05, I'll be left lamenting what could have been.
Well, look, let's get into the ability to let you flex a little bit here, which is your favorite thing to do on this show. Let's be honest. There are 3 guys that you hammered pretty well in the strikeout markets preseason, and they're all, knock on wood, knock on the biggest piece of wood that you've got, because we know the powers that we have on this podcast. But you've got 3 guys in terms of strikeout total bets that are looking really good at this point.
Yeah, well, strikeouts and probably home runs. I think, to mention your flexing, there are actually a few I could pick from here, right? Like there's a few conversations we could have about ones that are looking good. I want to actually start with James Wood. I got, what did I get? Let me get this tab up. I got $2 at 260. I got $2.75 about James Wood to hit 30 home runs this year. He's hit 28 at the break. I took 35 at $4.75, and I took 40 at $8. I mean, I feel pretty good about 40 home runs. Not if he gets traded to the Red Sox, like you said today, is I've being
seen
rumored.
2 other news outlets report that since I sent it, by the way. So it must be
so
a
much.
thing.
Everything is so
like
fun in Washington right now. Like Curtis Mead, the Nats, we've talked about it. Don't blow it up by selling these guys.
They could get a haul for him, though. I mean, it's for, this is for Tuesday's show, but they could get a haul for him right now if they traded him. So you understand probably why they're they're shipping him. I think all of baseball wants him to stay in Washington, but they could get a haul from Boston for him. But anyways, let's park that for Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, James Wood, 28 out of 30. I think out of any single bet I've made this year, that's clearly going the best. Not far behind, though, is the ladder for Yordan Alvarez that started at 35. I think he's got 31 at the break. And then in there as well, talked about him as a great MVP chance at I think 15, 17 was the price range preseason. He's $1.60 for that right now. And, Eric made the case for Junior Caminero a couple of weeks ago. He's into second favorite. Bobby Witt Jr. didn't spend as much time on the IL as we thought might happen, so he's there as well at around 550. But look, Jordan's got me in a pretty nice spot across both of those right now, and I'm feeling pretty good about where he is.
What about the guys on a pitching standpoint?
Pitching standpoint, on awards only, we spoke a lot about Dylan Cease preseason. I took him at 23s for the Cy Young, and he's now in a clear 2-horse race. Didn't touch his strikeout totals because they were so ridiculously inflated. And if you remember, we talked about how if he kind of gets 220 strikeouts, he's in the awards round anyway at 23s, but I don't want to be sitting around waiting for him to do that. And, he needed to get 8 strikeouts every single start, which he's pretty much been doing. But I was much happier taking the 23s about the Cy Young, which is where he's sitting now. So no strikeout tallies for him. Some guys that are killing their strikeout tallies, though. I mean, Chase Burns, man. I remember when we first started speaking about it at the start of the season, there was talk he maybe wouldn't be in the rotation. He kind of came back last year through the bullpen. This was a number 2 draft pick. I kind of shut down that talk and thought it was insane. And as we got closer to opening day, Hunter Green went on the IL, Lodolo went on the IL. All of a sudden, Chase Burns was like the ace of this stuff almost overnight. And he's lived up to it. I mean, he got a contract extension today for 7 years and a heap of money. And a heap of money might be what he can share with me if he keeps this up. We took him for 160 strikeouts at $2.20, 190 strikeouts at $4.25. He's on 118. He is electric to watch. I love watching Chase Burns pitch ever since he debuted last year. He'd be one of the guys that I'm really happy with. A couple more to touch on quickly. Cam Schlittler, like almost a double-edged sword here because he's the thorn in my Dylan Cease Cy Young side with a CYDE, if you will. Had him for 175 strikeouts at $3.30. He's got 137 at the break. I mean, that was just ridiculous value. I thought with Cole coming back late, Rodon coming back late, he was clearly going to get the opportunity. I'll be the first to admit I had no idea he was going to be this good, but 175 at 330 was madness, and he's been comfortably living up to that. And look, I can live with this one because if he doesn't hit 175 strikeouts for the rest of the season, Dylan Cease is winning the Cy Young.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And look, the other one that's probably somewhat of a surprise as to how easy he's doing it is Shota Imanaga.
Yeah, I thought, I kind of made a similar case for Senga here, but Senga had a lot more risk. I thought Shota's prices were crazy reactive to what was just a down year. When you look at the season he had the year before that, like his numbers were brilliant, and he's always had really good strikeout stuff and a really good command of the zone as well. You go back to his first season in the majors, he struck out 174, came 5th in the Cy Young. And his walk numbers were brilliant. He only walked 28 guys in 29 starts. So there wasn't that same concern there is with like a Senga and some of these guys, even a Chase Burns potentially, about these shortened outings with lack of control. Last year, he wasn't even really bad. The strikeout stuff just kind of disappeared. But if you listen to the deep dive we did preseason, his command was really good. His whiff was really good. Like a lot of the peripheral stats hadn't moved from that first season. So I just kind of flagged his 117 total last year for strikeouts as an outlier and one that was unlikely to be repeated. And I think that's come to pass because he's at 105 right now at the break in 19 starts. We got $2.25 about 140 and $6 about 160. So that one's looking really nice. And I think it's a case of don't be too recent with your recency bias in both ways. Like just as much as I didn't want to back up on Hunter Brown this year. And look, I know he spent time on the IL, but his numbers were ridiculous for even money. You were looking at 200. If you're going to be ignoring guys by that rationale, you should be forgiving guys for last season if they've proven that they've done it before.
And look, I don't want to jinx this, and I don't want to use the C word as in comfortable, but Schultz is probably the one that you're the most comfortable with and probably have the best chance at that big top up. I mean, he's 55 strikeouts away from 160, which if he keeps pace, he would get at $6. So in a lot of ways, that could be your biggest land in the strikeout markets. I mean, again, we don't necessarily know how you staked them, but to be able to hit that 160 strikeouts at $6, I mean, that would probably be your best top up. I mean, Chase Burns at 425 for the 190 certainly is certainly is in range. Perhaps now you're wishing maybe that you would have done a little bit of a top up in Cam Schlittler. But yeah, oddly enough, it's that Shota Imanaga play that looks like it could potentially be the one that comes in at the best odds for you when the season ends. From a performance standpoint, sort of disregarding awards plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think him from a pitching standpoint and James Wood, look, and maybe even PCA. This isn't what I recommended, but I did do this because I'm a sick man, as I've mentioned before. The James Wood and PCA, their lines were both the same. So I had PCA for 30 at $3.60. When we did a check-in on this after April, early May, that ticket was as good as confetti there could be. Like, I was raging as hard at him as I was at Vladdy. I think he had 2 or 3 home runs in the first month. He just had the most ballistic time since then. I mean, he's $8 second favorite for the NL MVP right now, and he's up to 21 home runs, which is, look, at the halfway mark, he's somehow on pace for 40. But if you look at the fact that he's done almost all of this in a month's work, like, he could clear any of these totals with another month like he just had. So I actually doubled Wood and PCA for 30 at $9.90. Got a good chunk on that. And then I've got the 35 each ladder at, what's that, 20 to 1. And then this is probably unlikely unless PCA does go ballistic. I've got a ticket at 88 to 1 for both guys to hit 40. So the upside for the home runs, and probably to give you guys context why I randomly just say PCA number 21 in the chat when we're in the middle of a conversation. I am riding those guys pretty hard at the moment, and they're both doing really.
And the inverse of that is whenever I cheer his demise, whenever he's playing the St. Louis Cardinals, is why you nearly unfriend me once every 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, I don't mind if he strikes out 4 times a game and makes 3 errors in the field. As long as he goes yard once, we're good.
Fair enough. Eric, I'm going to give you a hypothetical before we sort of move on. Spoon does have some picks for the resumption, and I'm going to give Eric the floor a little bit to talk about the Women's World Cup. It's coming up in Rockford, Illinois next week. But I'm going to give you a hypothetical here, Eric. Spoon is going to sell you one of these 2 tickets at face value. Tell me which one you want. Are you taking Jordan's at 17s, or are you taking the Dylan Cease ticket at 26s today? If Spoon's going to sell you one of those tickets for what he bought it for,
Jordan, I think, for sure. I just think Cease probably has too many other variables, right? Like, he's a pitcher. He's already been hurt once this year. You don't know if it could happen again. It's looking like a good ticket. I'm not discrediting that, but I think we don't know what Camanero's health status is really going to be in the second run. I think Jordan's just the safer one of that.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think Cease has still got a massive Cam Schlittler-sized hill to climb, right? I think he only missed maybe 3 starts with that IL stint, but that's 3 starts still that Schlittler's going to make. And if we get to the end of the season and their stats are similar, that will be an issue. Although that said, I'm not sure. When I last looked, even with those missed starts, and I'm going to bring it up real quick, I actually think that he's currently pitched more innings than Schlittler has because he's gone deep. I mean, he took that no bid into the 9th the other day. Where are we? Innings pitched. Oh, no. So he's still 20 innings behind Schlittler. And that's going to be a problem when we get to the end of the season. Schlittler's beating him in all of the stats right now except for strikeouts. But I think, a big part of that is the time missed. If both guys make it the rest of the way, I'm feeling okay about Cease. And if Schlittler gets slowed down a little bit because it's his first full season, which can definitely happen, it's happened all the time, I'm probably feeling even better about it. And I think those things are being priced in when you look at both guys at 260 or whatever they are, because the award was done today as Cam Schlittler. So yeah, to Eric's point, I need more to go right from here with Cease, whereas business as usual for Jordan has me home.
Yep, I agree with that assessment.
Well, Eric, look, I know you need to run. You're a busy guy, as you talked about at the top of the broadcast, but I do want to slip this in because the Women's World Cup qualifiers, or the opening round, it essentially the first step in getting to a Women's World Cup next year is in Rockford, Illinois, starting next week. Team Australia is headed in that direction. I'll actually be headed to Taiwan next month to cover the other of those qualifiers. But look, I just thought maybe we could give some air to this tournament because it is an exciting one. And the Australian team does have a legitimate chance of making a run, not only in this qualifier tournament, but once they actually do get to the World Cup next year.
Yeah, it is going to be a good one. And it's in the heartbeat of women's baseball, right? Like, if you've seen League of Their Own, it's in Rockford, home of the Peaches. So yeah, super keen for this tournament. That's what I'll be covering on and focusing over the next couple weeks. All the Aussie girls, they left today, but it's also leading into the first ever women's professional, well, in the modern era, professional baseball league, which I'm really curious to see if it actually works going forward. I'm keen to watch that play, but no, it is a good tournament. It's USA are the favorites. Canada doesn't have really a full strength squad, which is interesting. Australia's game is with Mexico. It's going to be either Australia or Mexico, you would think, with Korea and Hong Kong lagging behind, but either Australia or Mexico to get through in a top 3 spot and advance to the final 6 super round, as it's called, which just happens in another year. But there's some exciting players that I'm keen to watch. Leah Cornish is probably the number one for me in terms of like excitement level. She's 19 years old. It's her second year. She played professionally in Quebec last year. She can throw 76, which is hard for women's baseball, and play third base. So I'm really keen to watch that. WBSC should have some good coverage of it. But yeah, it's a World Cup, just like it is in the soccer. So you get a bit of that passion on the line. And what's also cool is this is the biggest moment of all these players' lives so far. So yeah, really keen for it.
Yeah, obviously the Women's World Cup it's a great tournament. You can follow all of Eric's work at baseball.com.au. You can watch on Game Time via WBSC as well. So that'll be taking up a lot of your time over the next couple of weeks. My man, we know that you're busy. We'll let you go. We will step aside. And on the other end, Spoon will give us his best bets for the weekend. Getting you set for the weekend with Spoon's best bets. Baseball back in full force tomorrow. And look, a pretty good slate to begin the second half, in air quotes, of the MLB season. And straight off the bat, a good one at Yankee Stadium. Going to the Bronx for your first best bet tomorrow, Yankees-Dodgers.
Yeah, look, this is a setup you'll hear me kind of talk about a lot throughout the season. I really like the Yankees in this one. I mean, Sasaki's had his issues this year. He's got an ERA of 5.33, a strikeout rate below 9, a whip of 1.36. And I was kind of speaking to you off air about how I think the Yankees are in a really good spot second half of the season. If they get these guys back like Stanton, Rodon, Fried over the next few weeks, we don't know what's going to happen with Judge. I think he'd be a bonus at this point, but there's some conflicting reports there. I think the Yankees are in a really good spot heading into the second half of the season, and I'm expecting them to start strong with this homestand against their big market rival and 2 years ago's World Series matchup. So I like the Yankees, but not at $1.90. I think for the Yankees to get over the line, they're going to need a start from Garrett Cole. I think if you're going to have a good start from Garrett Cole, you're going to see 6 strikeouts. So I'm looking at 6 strikeouts for Cole and a Yankees win at $3.50, which I thought was a little crazy because you're basically getting almost no correlation, call it a discount, which you normally get for some of these pitcher performance doubles. For me, I mean, if Cole's getting 6 strikeouts, the Yankees are $1.30, $1.40 to win this. So we're not really getting punished at all by taking these two. I thought $3.50 was tremendous value.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. And a nice way to begin the second half with a bang. For your second best bet, we're going to Seattle. So from the East Coast to the West, Giants Mariners is where your other play comes from.
Yeah, look, if I own the only Yuri Perez Guernsey in Australia, then Ibo might own the only Bryce Miller one. I think Bryce Miller was so good for him.
If he doesn't have it yet, it's definitely on the way.
The All-Star sale, 40% off. He's got all the different City Connect variants and everything. He's a big Bryce Miller guy now. I think this guy's so good. I think they've abandoned the failed experiment of having him and Luis Castillo piggybacking off each other because they realized that Bryce Miller is just 10 times the pitcher in 2026 than Luis Castillo is. And now we're getting to see some length from Bryce Miller, which is really, really exciting. And look, he's got a great matchup tomorrow against the Giants. The Giants are an interesting team. You look at the season strikeout numbers, they're actually 6th best as far as strikeouts, but a heap of that is being carried by Luis Arias. If you actually look at how the games go, there's 2 or 3 guys in their lineup every time that can strike out 2 or 3 times. And I think the way Miller's now getting some length, he's going to get through this lineup at least twice, maybe 3 times. The other guy I like as well is Landon Raup. I don't think I've ever said his name out loud. What have we got on Baseball Reference pronunciation? We've got, it's pronounced Raup.
Oh, okay.
Landon Raup.
The more you know.
Okay. So Landon Raup's actually had a really nice season, and probably, look, it doesn't get talked about heaps because he's on a Giants team that's doing nothing. But in, you wouldn't call it a full season, but in a pretty full season last year, he struck out 102. At the halfway mark this year, he struck out 104. So his K rate is the best it's ever been. He has the best home run per 9 rate of anyone in the National League, which is a sneaky little bit of trivia for you. If that comes up at your next pub quiz night, you're going to know that one. I think Landon Raup is having a really good season, and I think he's got a great matchup tomorrow against the Seattle side that, look, they strike out a lot. They win games with the long ball, right? If you look at the numbers we're seeing for Landon Roop, doesn't give up the long ball a lot. That's probably going to give him more depth in the start. His strikeout rate is good. So with the case made for both pitchers and their matchups, 5 strikeouts each is $1.90. And I think that's really good. I think that's clearly a floor play for both guys. We got burnt when we did this last week with, who was it? Max Meyer against Brian Wu. Meyer ended up on 4 after starting very hot. So there's a little bit of risk there, but at $1.90, I love it. And then I can't do a play like this without looking at the top up part. And for both guys to get 7, that's paying $7. I think there's a really good chance of that. Bryce Miller's hit 7 in 4 of his last 5 starts, including an 8 and an 11. Landon Roop's probably a little more limited in that ceiling. But if you look at some of the tallies he's put up this year, I mean, he's hit 7 in 7 of his 18 starts. So he's always right around that mark. He's only missed the 5 mark in 4 starts all year. I think we could see a sneaky pitching duel tomorrow on a slate that is full of some bigger names, and we've talked about a couple of them already. But yeah, 7 each at 7 looks like a good top up to me.
I like that too, because one game rolls into the other. I mean, you've given us a play in Dodgers Yankees, and then 3 hours later you get to sit down and watch Giants Mariners. There's also a double header tomorrow, which I found very interesting. The Rays and Red Sox playing each other in a double dip, the first game back from the All-Star break. And you'd think, okay, cool, then that means there's an extra game, that there should be 16 games tomorrow, but there's not. But because of the Mets and Phillies played today, they have an off day tomorrow. Sometimes the Major League schedule just baffles, man, doesn't it?
I think, I'm the only person on the planet who watched that game today, but when I clicked into it on MLB TV, it said it's a makeup of a game on the 17th, which is tomorrow in the US. So they must have moved that game forward a day for weather. That's the only thing that makes sense, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know it was happening until I pulled it up, and it was in the 8th inning earlier today. And then I proceeded not to watch it like you did. So turns out that you're a better man than me in more ways than one.
I mean, if there's terrible weather in Philly this weekend, if there's terrible weather in Philly, we probably got blessed that it didn't hit Tuesday or Wednesday, right?
Yeah, fair enough. So look, Dodgers, Yankees in the first of Spoon's best, and then as you talked about, maybe going 5 apiece and topping up for 7 apiece for Roop and Bryce Miller in that Giants Mariners broadcast, or that game that's in the nightcap on the West Coast tomorrow. Don't forget, we'll have a Destiny Draft episode coming up on Monday. Hopefully I can pull myself off the floor. The listener's going to be in a good spot. It's going to start getting difficult for the listener on Destiny Draft because they won't have the benefit of picking early. Picking in that, 3rd and 6th in the first and second round starts to become a little bit tricky because you don't get the back-to-back picks. You've got to make sure that 3rd pick is right and good. Eric and I need to make a move, but our listener on Monday, Spoon, I think is going to... Well, not only does he have big shoes to fill after the listeners won on 2 separate occasions through the first 4 rounds, but I think moving from the 2nd spot in the draft order to the 3rd spot in the draft order does make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think what we found out in the last few weeks is it's actually that 3rd pick, right, that can become, that's where you usually are making a decision of who your utility is going to be, like another pitcher or another hitter. Sometimes you can go in with a plan. We've seen it done where guys just take 2 of one, but I'd say 80% of the time we're drafting after 2 players, you probably got 1 of each. When you have to wait longer, and I've had to do it, when you have to wait longer for that 3rd one to come back around, the chance of any of the guys you like still being there is really small. Yeah. So I think you're more inclined to have to reach, at least in that 2nd round pick, because there's 4 picks in the listener's case before your next one, it snakes back around. And then if you reach on a guy who underperforms and you've left some talent on the table, you end up having to go back a fair few times and looking at it and going, yeah, I missed that one. So it's going to be interesting to see how much that moves the needle. And our great equalizer, the draft position, may end up getting you and Eric back into the swing of things.
Well, look, I've had the first overall pick the last couple rounds, and it hasn't done me much good. Well, I guess, look, the first pick overall has done me plenty of good. Obviously, Tarek Skubal was the highest scoring player of the round in round number 4. It was the other guys that I ended up drafting. So, again, we will have an episode on Monday, Destiny Draft round number 5. And we'll have a full episode where we'll be talking trade deadline stuff on Tuesday. Great to have baseball back. Looking forward to a weekend full of baseball while we freeze our nubs off here in Australia. Enjoy your baseball. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you on Monday, everybody.